Right. I can do that before we start.
Right, we are ready to go.
All right, I hereby call this meeting of the Millburn CC Board of, School District 24 Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 7 o'clock on May 13th, 2024. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
John Lorenzen.
Here.
Brendan Murphy.
Here.
Peter Petrorini.
Here.
Jillian Phelps. Here. John Burgos.
Here.
Fred Skepstrom.
Here.
And Lisa Worcester. Here.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, do we have public comments?
We have one. Chris Hamilton.
Wait, let me, hold on. Okay, sorry, you're good. Had to get the stopwatch set.
Good evening. I want to start by saying thank you to Mr. Lorenzen for the decision he made on the April 22nd meeting to vote in favor of restoring Millburn's reading program. While I'm not sure what prompted you to have that change of opinion, I think it's worth mentioning that I appreciate that decision. And I'm quite sure others feel the same. I'm not sure if you publicly vocalized the reason for that decision or not, but if you'd be willing to share, I'd be interested to hear more about your thought process associated with changing your vote on this matter. I believe the public would be interested to know if this issue has been put entirely to rest, or if this is a topic you or other members of the board intend to take additional action on in the future. It should also go without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Thank you to the 3 members of the board who voted consistently in favor of maintaining our reading program throughout this entire debacle. As frustrated as many of us in the public may be, I'm sure it is to be more frustrating for you to have to sit alongside folks who are so willing to harm our students and staff for no apparent benefit beyond their own political virtue signaling. Thank you for your professionalism in dealing with this issue. Those of us out here in the community very much appreciate it. The events of these meetings over the past few months have been very concerning. The actions taken by the board have brought negative attention to our community and have served to inappropriately shoehorn political extremism into our school system. I believe that the board should work to find a place in an upcoming agenda to review our district's mission statement and the associated vision and values that go along with it. I know this was raised in a meeting earlier in March, but this vision and its associated values should be at the forefront of your decision-making process going forward. As a final parting thought, I also want to mention something that I think has stoked frustration between the board and the community throughout this issue. As members of the public, our time to speak to you is limited to brief statements like these, to which the board has no obligation or ability to respond directly. Similarly, during the course of your meetings outside of these public statements, there's no opportunity for anyone outside of the board to provide any insight into the discussions that ultimately unfold. I think it's worth highlighting that there are very likely topics through which continued engagement with members of the public would be beneficial to the board's decision-making process. I would therefore encourage the board to consider conceptualizing ways that such discussions might be better organized, particularly when topics arise that garner the sort of public attention that we saw in this issue. As much as it surely frustrates you to have members of the public improperly interrupt discussions during your meeting, it's equally frustrating to members of the public to have no way to provide their knowledge, expertise, and opinions in such discussions. In short, I think everyone would benefit from the enablement of improved two-way communication between the board and the community. And I would encourage you to consider ways that it might be better accomplished.
Thank you. All right, do we have any addition of information or discussion items for tonight's meeting? No? Okay. Information and discussion items, MES ELA curriculum proposal.
All right, I'm gonna turn this over to Mr. Walshire. He's gonna share with us what we've been talking about for a long time in ELA, but specifically this year and decisions that are made. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Walshire.
Let's have some fun. Will you prepare, will you stop sharing?
Oh, yes, I will.
Or will you please stop?
Yes, I will. Also,
All right, also, I want to reintroduce Sandy Stolzer. She's gonna join me in this presentation. Sandy is our K2 instructor coach here at Millburn Elementary. All right, so we're going to be presenting a little bit of what our current curriculum is when it comes to literacy, K through 5 here in the building, but also address some of our needs that we've kind of assessed and looked at. We need to kind of firm up and start improving it. So first thing I wanted to really, as we start looking at our curriculum, 3 things that need to come to mind when we start looking at literacy curriculum. Explicit, systematic, guaranteed. That's going to be something that we're going to be highlighting throughout this entire presentation. Are our materials explicit? Are they systematic, and are they guaranteed? Well, let's make sure we know what that all means. So explicit instruction is a way to teach in a direct, structured way. When teachers use explicit instruction, they make lessons crystal clear. They show kids how to start and succeed a task. They also give kids plenty of feedback and chances to practice. Think about a time when you try to follow a new recipe, only to find out a step is missing or it is unclear. You might have been able to guess what to do next, but without explicit instructions, you may have added the wrong ingredient or stopped cooking the dish altogether. Same thing can happen when kids learn something new. Some can make inferences to figure out the next steps or to work through the unknown. But for kids who learn and think differently, one unclear direction or having too many things to remember can be a deal breaker. That's where explicit instruction comes in. It can be used with students of all ages. It can be taught with a whole class, small group of students, or one student at a time. That's explicit. Systematic instruction. The goal of systematic instruction is one of maximizing the likelihood that whenever students are asked to learn something new, they already possess the appropriate prior knowledge and understanding to see its value and to learn it efficiently. The plan for instruction that is systematic is carefully thought out, builds upon prior learning, is strategic building from simple to complex, and is designed before activities and lessons are planned. For example, one needs to know letters and letter sounds before putting sounds together to make words. And finally, guaranteed viable curriculum. The guaranteed aspect of a guaranteed viable curriculum requires all students enrolled in the same class, course, or grade level be exposed to the same rigorous curriculum, regardless of the teacher to whom they are assigned to. So while teachers have great flexibility in how to teach and meet the needs of their students, there must be consistency in what is taught and learned by all students. So guaranteed viable curriculum means that districts have identified essential content and skills necessary for all students to learn in specific courses and grade levels. So that's just a quick overview on explicit, systematic, and guaranteed.
All right, so just to review a little bit with the science of reading, what we talked about back in February. So when we look at the science of reading, it's not just a literacy, it is not a literacy method in of itself. Rather, it is an existing body of knowledge about how we learn to read. This body of evidence proves again and again that nearly every child can learn to read with confidence given that explicit instruction in the components of reading. And so when we go back to look at those 5 pillars of reading, in what we talk about today, we're going to talk mainly about that phonemic awareness and phonic instruction. The reading program that we currently have does an excellent job of that fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. It does have phonemic and phonics, but it's not always explicit. And so that's where we are kind of seeing some difficulties at what we have. So currently, when we talk phonemic awareness, we're referring to what we hear. So putting that connection and being flexible with those sounds that are in the spoken word. Whereas in phonics, we're looking at more of that learning to read, putting together letters and sounds. And then that is heavy in kindergarten and 1st grade. As children move into 2nd grade, they're still doing some of that, but then it's beginning to grow and they're looking more at prefixes and suffixes and beginning to look at syllables. As kids move into 3rd through 5th grade, then they're going into more of context clues. They're looking at more of the fact of the structure of the words. And so that's where we're going to kind of build on that phonics pillar heavily this evening. So when it comes to reading progression, as you can see from this chart, kindergarten and 1st grade is predominantly phonemic awareness. That's when children learn those things. And then we get into phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension, which is covered at most all of the grade levels in elementary.
So with this visual, you can kind of see where within the grade levels, each one of those areas are addressed. But this next slide talks about what we currently have in place when it comes to the materials and the resources that our teachers have. And so a couple things I want you to highlight from this chart is things that are in red. Those are the things that as we assessed our current curriculum, obviously, we wanted to look deeper into that. Teacher created materials, although there are many avenues where things might work, but we had to ask ourselves, are things explicit? Are they systematic, and are they guaranteed? But also notice that ARC, who currently we have in place for 1st through 5th grade, is consistent with fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So as we looked at these things, obviously there are 2 areas that we want to look deeper into. And are those things, again, explicit, systematic, and guaranteed? So we're going to focus in right now on the phonics and word recognition aspect, because that's what took our journey into digging a little bit deeper. What we currently use is it working? So this is how we mapped it out. As we start reviewing those basic definitions of explicit, systematic, and guaranteed, are things explicit when it comes to phonics and phonological awareness? In kindergarten and 1st grade, they are explicit. They are teaching direct with students. But what we found out in kindergarten, it was not systematic. It wasn't guaranteed. Because one of the challenges you have with teacher created materials is, even as a principal, what do you have to give to a new teacher coming into the district when it comes to instructional materials? Because that is the responsibility of our district, to give those resources to any teacher coming in and teaching that curriculum. So therefore, it's not systematic, it's not guaranteed. In 1st grade, we currently use a program called Words Their Way. Open Court. And Open Court is explicit, it is systematic, and it's guaranteed. But one of the things we noted about systematic is Open Court is only used in 1st grade. And so how does that tie into what's being taught in kindergarten? How is it tied in 2nd grade? As you can see, there's no X's in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade when it comes to word recognition and phonics. So obviously this was a big telling chart for us to say, like, what do we need to do?
So when we began this journey, we really looked at Haggerty because we had great success with Haggerty with phonemic awareness. And so they have a new program called Bridge to Reading, which took them into the phonics aspect of things. And so with presentations between Open Court, seeing their materials, looking at Haggerty, and also looking at our curriculum, kindergarten and 1st grade liked what they had to offer when it came to Haggerty. It connected specifically with their phonemic awareness that they were currently doing, and then bridged them over into that phonics area. So with the materials that come with the phonics instruction with us, there is an online component that teachers can use, but then there are also soundboards and cards and some other decodable readers. And so lots of different materials that are going to help children make that connection when it comes to that sound word recognition and moving on from there. So Haggerty was the choice of kindergarten and 1st grade because of that connection that they had with phonemic awareness. It connected both of those 2 grade levels and gave us more of a process that they can carry over. When we moved into 2nd grade, so with 2nd grade, they were part of all of those discussions as well. But the Haggerty process kind of delved into some things that took them out in all different directions. And there's a lot of other curriculum that's happening in 2nd grade when it comes to reading. And so they felt that using the new ARC phonics part that ARC is constantly growing and changing. And so they provided a more explicit phonics instruction for 2nd grade. And so with that, it connected specifically with all of the units that they were going to be teaching. So we have 4 units in the ARC program. And one of them, the 2nd unit, is bugs. So this is going to be my example. So with the phonics, what they did is they're taking whatever vowel teams and whatever type of phonics, whatever type of syllabification, anything that they're going to be working on that's related to phonics, all gets connected with bugs. So it makes it a more seamless movement when they're teaching it, plus the fact that the kids have a constant connection of reading the words that they're talking about as they're researching, as well as writing those words and beginning to spell those words out. Because encoding is a huge thing starting in 2nd grade on up, and that's where we're finding more of our gaps. So ARC's program really fit the bill for 2nd grade. And then with 4th and 5th grade, so as we move in, as I explained before, that becomes a word structure program. So they're no longer learning to read, but they are still learning the meaning of words. They are heavy into that encoding process. And with all of that, they're looking at roots and prefixes and suffixes and looking at Greek and Latin roots, understanding the meaning of words with context clues. And so they looked at morpheme magic as providing that connection that will fit in, doing some activities along with what they are currently doing with ARC. So it gave them more of an explicit instruction and less, instead of finding their way through looking at some different things.
So with those materials that we're proposing that we provide for our teachers. Again, going back to phonics and word recognition, this was our chart, explicit and systematic guarantee. By adding these materials, this is what it should be providing us. Now, notice there's something that's left off, and that's third grade. Because right now, I'm here tonight to tell you, we do not have anything to present to propose for third grade right now, because we are still in the midst of deciding what's going to be best for that grade level. There are two programs, obviously, you've heard about both. Morpheme Magic is something that obviously we're going to be proposing to add those resources for 4th and 5th grade. But we recently just found out that Haggerty is actually providing some word study resources to the older grade levels that our team felt they would like to explore before committing and proposing those next steps. So we still have it as a goal that we need to have something for our teachers by next school year. And so we do want to spend the last remaining few weeks of the school year and hopefully come back and I revisit this with you next month on a decision that they're would like to do when it comes to their progression of work study. Just tonight, we haven't made that decision. So expenditures, here's what it's going to all entail. And so I like those smiley faces. So as we kind of mentioned, when it comes to bridge to reading, there's a lot of materials behind that. And so with those materials, the initial cost is $1,700 per classroom. And so we will have 12 classrooms next school year in kindergarten, in 1st grade. So the total of that initial cost will be $20,400. Now, there is a yearly cost after the 1st year. But right now, we're not sure on what we're going to be needing until we actually get into it. Now, we can always have the Cadillac package, and that could be option 1, where it's $700 a classroom with all these things. But after looking at some of these materials, there might be things that either one we can reuse, there might be things that we find out that we can make on our own. And so right now, I can give you an idea of what we might be looking at. We're not going to be probably looking at option 1, but we really have to kind of see as we experience the 1st year, what are the ins and outs, because the initial cost is going to cover all those things, but then the consumables, there is a digital access that teachers are going to be using as a resource when it comes to their instruction. That we still want to kind of see what does that entail. Maybe we might find out that digital access is something that maybe it's not necessarily used all the time, or they eventually, it's tough to see. So I want the board to be aware that there is a potential yearly cost, but I don't know what that will be, and that's something I have to revisit with the board as we progress through this program. So that is Bridge to Reading for K1. For ARC, maybe this is a big smile on the face, it's not going to be additional cost, because with ARC, they're aligning to the science of reading. So they're constantly updating the materials, and we have the digital access. So the teachers will already have those those added resources as part of our yearly subscription that we already have with ARC when it comes to teacher materials. So there is no initial cost behind that. The yearly cost, one of the things I just want you to be aware of is that we do have subscription right now that's $9,000. That covers our data warehouse of all the reading levels and that our students we track throughout the entire school year. Those of you that have students here in the building, we use ERLA. So it houses all of our ERLA information. That's where our teachers do the assessments in there, but there's also a lot of resources for our teachers when it comes to their instructional practices. We're going to be expanding that next year, because not only for more resources for our teachers, but it also provides more resources for our students. Some of your students might have seen the ARC bookshelf and be able to, because our ARC program, for those of you that may not be familiar with it, it's very heavy into books. There's no more classic textbook. Here's the story of the week. Here's your spelling list. Classrooms are flooded with text. So when we initially implemented ARC, there was a big upfront cost because of all the materials that came in. This now provides an opportunity for students that may be reading the book in the classroom. Now they can access it on their iPad at home if they want to do some follow-up. So we're gonna be expanding that, but the actual initial cost for the phonics for second grade will not be an initial cost.
Plus all the manuals will be, as they're being updated, we would have a digital access to those. And so then any updates that come up with our teachers will have the most updated manuals.
For Morphe Magic, it is just a teacher manual for each classroom, which is only $130. I should say, well, $130. It's a lot, but compared to the bridge to reading, it's significant less of a cost. But it's $130 a classroom. We'll have 11 classrooms in that next year. And so the total for the implementation of Morphe Magic for 4th and 5th grade would be $1,430, and there is no yearly cost after that. So that's phonics award study. Notes from that chart. So earlier we showed you this chart, but now what we're honing in on is kindergarten. So as we looked at that, where is our explicit, systematic and guaranteed curriculum for kindergarten? So it's all been teacher created over the last several years. And so as we look through this, yes, our teachers are doing a wonderful job being explicit with their instruction, knowing exactly step by step how to teach students. But it was different in every classroom. There was no materials to give to a teacher that we didn't guarantee. So obviously we had some excess left off of this when it came to kindergarten, when it came to fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary.
So then we have the connection with ARC 4. So with ARC 4, that heavy literacy program, which is heavy in reading and heavy in writing. So what we are doing is we are making that connection from kindergarten to 1st grade. Both of those grades are heavy with all of the curriculum that they have to do. And so making that connection for little ones to see when it comes to vocabulary and when it comes to processes, that ability to move from kindergarten to 1st grade, that 1st grade teacher is not going to have to teach all of those processes because they will have learned them in kindergarten. So there is, of course, there's a big difference between kindergarten and 1st grade, but ARC recognizes that. And so the layout of it takes that into consideration. And so with the new kindergarten curriculum, so this shows you, it's going to have 4 units, just like all of the other programs, all of the other grade levels do. And in each of those units, it comes with its own classroom library for that particular, like for instance, the one you're seeing up there is zoology. They'll have books that the kids can read for zoology, but then there are several books that teachers are then reading, because part of that background knowledge for kindergartners, because they can't read it all themselves, they're hearing it. It's all about the literature that the children are hearing and having from the teacher, and what books that they're reading, whether they're that heavy informational text as well as those wonderful stories that they all enjoy. And so through each unit, they're receiving baskets of books that the kids will actually be able to read as well as the teacher having. Plus the fact that they'll have some even little writing journals that they will be using. And so they have that for each of the units. Plus they will be receiving toolkits too. And with those toolkits, those are what they're going to use for their differentiated instruction. And so those are small group, again, providing that explicit instruction that carries them through that whole process, following the science of reading, as well as covering, so that they're covering all of those pillars.
But they're coloring too.
Yeah, covering. No, we are talking kindergarten. So.
And that's, although there's a lot of materials you see on that screen, that's just a little bit of what each classroom would get. So there's a lot, again, as I highlighted before, there's a lot of materials behind it. And so by adding ARC, then we accomplish the explicit systematic guaranteed curriculum within each of those areas that we're focusing in on kindergarten. To name awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and writing. And obviously we kind of put in the phonics soon be, depending on the decision for the board of what our proposal is, recommending bridge to reading. All right, next slide. It's the expenditure request, which is the hefty price tag behind this. And I don't know the number offhand, but when we initially did 1st through 5th grade ARC, it was a huge price tag for the district. And so this is obviously the price has increased since we initially did this 5 years ago with the materials, but with everything included that teachers need to have in their hands, it is just over $11,000 per classroom, which we will have 6 classrooms next year in kindergarten, which brings the grand total at $68,000. There is no yearly cost besides that subscription that we already have in the building.
And so that covers that tier 1 instruction with all of the kids, as well as that tier 2 for that small group intervention. well, actually, for all children, no matter what level they're reading at, all of the children will benefit from the differentiated instruction as well.
So our proposal, that, we hope to have you take action on is the implementation of three things. The implementation of bridge to reading for K-1 for phonics instruction, the implementation of morpheme magic from 4th through 5th grade, and then implementation of ARC-core literacy for kindergarten. So looking at everything that we presented today, bridge to reading, ARC, morpheme magic, and then ARC-core for kindergarten, brings the grand total of initial cost to $90,480. We also know by any implementation of a new program, professional developments. So as we start looking through some of the aspects of what our teachers need to get this implemented with fidelity and success, Bridge to Reading does offer professional development for a rate of $2,000. And then ARC Core, which we've had in our initial implementation, I believe our first year we had a series of 4 to 5 days that they came in. So this is a training that we're looking at providing our kindergarten teachers before the start of the school year. That's at a rate of $3,800. And morpheme magic, we're gonna be doing in-house because our new instructional coach for 3rd through 5th grade, who's starting with us next year, is familiar with morpheme magic. We implemented it in her last district, so she'll be providing that in-house training for our teachers. So estimated professional development right now is at $5,800. So putting everything together, materials, resources, professional development, we're asking for a proof to be a $96,280 cost. Resources. So as we go back and looking at the reading progression, again, all the areas of reading development, then all the grade levels, by adding these programs, with the exception of 3rd grade, which you'll know there's lots of question marks right now, we should have an explicit, systematic, guaranteed curriculum. And within each of those areas, within literacy development. Anybody catch why the slides are red and white?
School colors,
What's that?
school colors.
But you're right. There's no way we knew which slides we were gonna. Any questions?
I have a question. Why wasn't ARC Core for kindergartners implemented 5 years ago?
Dave?
Yeah,
Hearing from the kindergarten team, at the time, we had a kindergarten team that had been veteran teachers, been part of the same team for many on years. They had everything right there. As we started coming in with new teachers and then COVID hit, things started branching out the different ways. As we're trying to hone in, as we had the discussions with our kindergarten team, we're like, well, here's the work that needs to be done. One of the things I wanted to reassure the kindergarten teachers is, remember, your role, your primary role is you're teaching the kids. I also don't want you to spend any additional time writing curriculum, because I feel like we need to give you those materials. And so at the time, we had it in place, but with the series of new staff and COVID, it kind of. That's what it is.
I have a couple. The first is, what's the money get us? Does it get just material, or does it get us teacher training on how to use the material? Is there,
Yeah, so
um,
the 90,000 is the materials, and then the professional development behind that, the training.
do they track? Guess that's not the best way to answer, because I'm leading to my next question. Because you hear about schools where 0 kids are at reading levels. When kids advance to the next grade, obviously maybe some haven't quite made it, or some are even beyond them. So I'm not talking about the core kids.
Yeah.
Is there a program or instruction or something that helps those kids because we still graduate them, but they're still not where they need to be? Is that part of this program?
Yeah,
as
so that's
well,
part of the
to pull them
resources.
up?
Sadie mentioned, I can tell you right now that at least with our core, I can tell you is that those toolkits she alluded to, that's how we're kind of break down the resources of our teachers of our, if this student's at this reading level, I can use this toolkit with this student, with these group of students. And so it has some built-in intervention with that. But as we go through our process, and every single month, we review where students are at, we look at our reading levels on a consistent basis, to kind of see where our students are progressing. We also identify kids, what type of supports do they need? Do they need a level 2 support, where they may just need a couple days a week, where they just need some extra skill practice. We have students that may need intensive support every day on this foundational skill. We do have students that might be a year or 2 years behind grade level, so they need that intensive support. I can tell you right now, our interventionists that kind of work with our most intensive students, we have a variety of different resources that they use when it comes to what specific skills. A lot of times it does tie in, but for example, if you're looking at a second grade student who's still working on phonemic awareness and phonics that are in more kindergarten, first grade, they have resources that they utilize to help reinforce those skills.
That comes with this cost, so they'll give it to it, let's say a kid goes from second to third, it's still
Toolkit.
kind of in second, because school still will have the
But,
resource.
but we also know that we're gonna be also sharing some of those resources, so that if we know if there's something like, is there something I can grab in first grade? If they're utilizing that type of program. Because we also have a different phonics support in special education and with interventions called UFly. That's a more intensive support. It's also time-wise, that was one of the programs we were looking at early on. But it's also, the lessons are designed for 30-minute lessons. And as we start looking at, all right, how do we do a 30-minute lesson within our 90-minute literacy block with all these different skills? Was there other ways that we started looking at on the program? Not to say that UFly doesn't, but right now it's being successful with those most at-risk students. Within the interventions or in special education.
And then for the AIM students, are they starting on the next grade level, or is there special toolkits for them as well?
So with our AIM program, because AIM reading starts in third, fourth, and fifth grade, they do more of that enrichment. There's tie-in to what
ARC.
we do with the ARC. But they really kind of dig deeper and they kind of have it all separate, because it's not corporate, it's more enrichment. But this Conica does a great job. She knows what's going on in those classrooms, and she does her best with connecting. What is this theme? It might be something with space, it might be something in families. So there's at least a connection.
But even those high achievers that aren't AIM students, there are toolkits for them too, that a teacher can go above grade level, and we have provided some different type, teachers have come up with some different things that help to support some of those high-end students, and so they are able to read whatever kinds of books that they're wanting to read, and doing some activities that relate to it to help to continue to grow.
But that would not necessarily be ARC, but there could be
Well,
some
actually,
tie-ins.
it does relate to it. There are some things that do relate to it, and those are those toolkits. Those toolkits come at every level. So we found that if a third grade classroom is needing a toolkit that is more of a first grade student, then we have been able to use materials and get them to them, as well as in the opposite, and maybe a second grade teacher has something that a fourth grade teacher has. We've kind of reached out, so we have shared things like that, and so that's where Melissa and myself, as the instructional coaches, we've supported them with that.
And I will say, our teachers have done a tremendous job. There are a number of kids in every grade level. As we do our beginning of the year assessment, seeing what reading levels are where our students are at, there are students that are already at that level, which is the goal for the end of the school year.
Mhm.
Here we are, we got 9 months of learning, what are we gonna do? And they've done a great job of keeping all of our students growing. We have an expectation, every student needs to grow a year, no matter what level that they're at. Obviously, on the lower end, we want to expedite that growth, so we can start closing gaps. But bare minimum, every student needs to grow by a year, so that even the high achieving ones, if they, for example, fifth grade, I was just looking at that today, because fifth grade is purple, is the urban level. By the end of the school year. Well, there's a couple of kids came in fifth grade already at purple. So what do you need to do? Well, we're gonna get them to the next level, because as we get into the reading levels of the older kids, the reading level is a little bit broader range, where the other grade levels, there's more of these levels in there. And so we know, like, all right, what are some resources we provide for our teachers for the next level, which is ground. Is the ground level, which gets into sixth grade type of things, because they've been doing a great job differentiating. That's where the small groups, we do small groups with the kids that are at risk. We also do small groups with the kids that are above grade.
And as we switch schools, is there still kind of that,
It's a-
yeah, when you go from fifth to sixth, there may be some still are in sixth doing.
Middle school right now is having that discussion.
Okay,
I don't want to speak for Jake in middle school, but they began that discussion looking at the literacy program. I can even let you know, they've asked about art. I'm not saying that's what they're gonna go, but I know that sixth grade teachers have asked, tell us what their reading levels are. Going up there, because they kind of want to know, what are they walking in with, how they can differentiate those kids and making sure they continue.
Good for me.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, seventh and eighth grade math pathways.
Well, now I can't find it. It would be a lot easier to explain if you can see the pathway versus. Go. Bigger in just a second. Okay, so I'll go. Oops. Switching gears back into the math. To the world math, I'm gonna go back over a little bit of our math pathways in the middle school and some ideas that our teachers have been talking about actually for several years, but now really feel the need to make this switch now in line with our new curriculum. So our new curriculum is very rigorous and it's gonna push our kids a little bit beyond where we're at currently with our current curriculum. So what the middle school generally and most simply is proposing is to wait to jump kids up into a two pathways until 8th grade versus 7th grade. So I'm gonna go backwards and explain this a little bit more as to show you what we're seeing here. So this left-hand column would be our gifted and talented math program on the left. This number at the top represents the percentage of those students that pass the Illinois Assessment of Readiness state test every year. So 100% of these students pass the IAR with a 4 or 5. Those are the students that qualify for the gifted and talented starting in 3rd grade. That's when we differentiate. That's the first time where we bump kids up. So 1st grade, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, all kids are in one math group. 3rd grade, end of 2nd grade, we assess the kids, and if they qualify and we determine that they need to go up a level, they go up a level, and we compact that 3rd and 4th grade math scope and sequence or curriculum into that 1 year in 3rd grade. So that's our first opportunity for acceleration for math. And again, those are the gifted and talented math students, generally above the 95th percentile in standardized tests. Those kids continue on with that same group. So in 4th grade, they would be in the 5th grade math. In 5th grade, they take middle school math 1, which is a 6th grade math. In 7th grade, they take honors algebra 1, so that's a high school honors algebra 1 course. In 8th grade, then they would take high school honors geometry. That has been our pathway for those students for a very long time. This year, combining this high school honors geometry and honors algebra 1, we get math 1 and 2. So because Lakes, we feed into 3 different high schools, which makes a unique challenge. And for those of you that have had kids go through our system, it's hard to match up high schools with 3 different philosophies in math. But this track matches up perfectly if we do high school honors math 1, which would be the Lakes High School Honors Math course, and high school honors math 2 in 7th and 8th grade, because it's all the content included in those 2 programs together over the course of 2 years. They integrate it so that it's not just, okay, now we're teaching algebra 1 and now we're teaching honors geometry. There's algebra that you need in geometry and geometry that can be used in algebra. And so that's how it's called integrated math. So that's the general idea there. So this group is good. And we will continue doing that with that particular group. This middle group So this is about 20% of our students here.
Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Seventh grade, we're doing one high school and eighth grade, we're doing the other,
No,
as opposed to a hybrid of doing both schools for seventh and eighth, or are we doing that? Follow what I'm saying?
no. Say it again.
We have different programs starting out the different high schools.
Yes,
One says geometry, the other is algebra one.
Right.
Yep. Are you doing both of them in both grades, or if you're doing algebra
Yes.
one in seventh grade, you're waiting a whole nother year before you get to the freshman year of high school for that particular one, you follow what I'm saying? Or are we mixing both of them for those years?
mixing both. So that's a good question. I think I understand where you're going. So let's say I'm going to Warren.
Mhm.
So Lakes, this is easy because you're doing high school honors math 1, high school honors math 2, your freshman year, your high school honors math 3.
Right. Yep.
If you go to Warren,
Or for Lakes,
what's that?
you meant for Lakes, the
For,
first one, yeah.
for Lakes, yeah, for Lakes, that's a nice, clean and easy transition.
Okay.
If you're going to Warren, you're going to math 1, math 2, but you've already completed the course for algebra 1 and honors geometry. And so you're starting algebra 2 as a freshman.
I guess that doesn't matter so much, because math kind of builds on itself, you know what I mean?
Right. So you've had the content over, but I see what you're saying.
You
If
just waited. a
some of
whole
the
year.
content you've had here, but that would be the case either way.
Will it disappear by the time you go to high school, I guess is what I'm saying.
Probably less so with an integrated program because you're reviewing the algebraic concepts, it's building and you're doing algebra all year. And you're doing some geometry here, so it's both. Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's the idea, that's the
Mhm.
theory. Does that actually work out in real life? I'm not sure.
Good.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that one's an easy course pathway for us. This middle group. Not so easy, so. 86% of these kids, at least in this particular year. Got a 4 or 5 on the IAR, Illinois Assessment of Readiness. And they did high school algebra 1 and or math 1 in 8th grade. Okay, so that's a second step. What we did before is they would do regular math, middle school math 1 in 6th grade. And then we would split them out into accelerated or math 2. Depending on where their test scores align. Okay, so all these, the group in the middle and on the right, same class in 6th grade, we split them out in 7th grade. Accelerated and regular. And then they would go on to high school algebra 1 in 8th grade. And then if they go to Warren, they would go to honors geometry, high school honors geometry, or Grays Lake North, they'd be high school honors geometry. If they go to Lakes, they would either go to math 1 or math 2. Depending on how they performed. But the challenge with going to Lakes is they would have had high school algebra 1, but they would have missed the geometry portion of math 1. So they'd either have to score high enough to cover that geometry or take a bridge course to get into honors 2. That by tracking sort of so far. This year, what we did is all the kids, it worked out numerically to have a whole section of Warren and Grays Lake kids take out high school algebra 1 and 2 sections of Lakes kids take high school math 1. So they'll articulate clean, which is great. Numbers don't always work out that well, but this year it did. And then on the right, you have the math. Grade level math. Just middle school math 1, 2, and 3, that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. What our teachers are proposing for this next year is instead of accelerating all of this group here and sorting them at this level, wait one more year and sort them here, so we still maintain this level. But we keep the kids together, this whole group, because the new curriculum has some good differentiation tools. And research supports this, where the less often you can track this group of students, the better. So this is what we are proposing for next year. It is not causing any difference for the high school. It's not going to impact kids long-term in the high school. It's just keeping them together one more year. It gives the teachers one more year to make those decisions. So we make sure that we get as many kids as possible into that middle group.
So that's gonna go up one.
Yeah.
What about the kids who are in it?
Well,
We're
we're
doing
doing
this.
it's a,
Move them
so
over?
this group will continue on to here.
Okay,
This group will just go up into math too.
I got you.
And that group then in high school would go into algebra 2 if they qualify. Not everybody does or wants to, but they would go into algebra 2 or math 2 at the high school. Or honors geometry at Lake, or at Warren, I guess it would be honors geometry or math 2 at Lakes. And then by the time they're seniors, they would take either AP Calc or AP Stats, whatever they choose. Now, we are also talking to the high school, so we look at how do our kids do when they leave us? Because we want to know what that progression looks like, because I hear all kinds of different feedback from parents sometimes. Good and bad about how that pathway works, and for different kids, it works differently. So I want to know how many kids in this group on the left, this gifted group, how many kids take that Calc BC as juniors? Is that advantageous? What do they see? How successful are they, et cetera, et cetera? I have a small sample size of several people that we know, and see how kids go through that. It's worked well for some, for others, not so much. Because then as a senior in high school, you take AP Stats, which is for that group of kids, pretty easy. And then they haven't had Calc, and if they don't have Calc their freshman year in college, they wouldn't have Calc 3 until their sophomore year. It's a long time between Calc classes. So I don't think there's a right and wrong answer. I just I want to make sure that people understand the ramifications of how this pathway goes from here and articulates onto the high school and then articulates on past that. And not to, we don't want to push too many kids too fast here that aren't ready. There's some kids that we need to challenge because they love math and are very talented. So we want those kids here. We want those opportunities. And we want kids to do as well as they can in that middle group too. As many kids as possible, but we also don't want to push kids. They need to have that foundational core math mind that's going to eventually serve them better as they get into the higher level math. So the more kids we can get that better foundation, the better.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but there's 3 high schools, so now we're talking Grays Lake, is it?
Grays Lake North.
So are they the same as Warren? So when we talk Warren, so.
Similar, yes,
Okay, so that will be a similar pathway for those kids too.
correct.
Lakes, and I don't know about Warren or Grace Lake. Also, I think you can graduate Lakes with college credits through their math program, right? Does this feed into that too?
It feeds into the AP. So if you're in this group on the left, you're gonna take AP courses as a junior. So you can take AB Calc or Calc AB or AP Calc BC, which is your first 2 years of Calc.
Are you talking about dual enrollment or dual credit? dual college?
They have one of those, they have a
There's
pre-calc.
also a DC AV calculus class.
Yeah.
But in order to get the college credit, they have to pass the AP exam.
They do, okay. And so we're setting them up for that, which is good too, right?
We've had students that take advantage of it and do. They can either graduate early or it can help students if they're in a math major, it can help get them further faster in college and it helps with scheduling in some cases in college because they've had some of those lower level maths out of the way. It can help in a variety of ways, so. And that is so, as we're finding out, it's so difficult because every college is different and how that works and their syllabus is. For their math programs, it's been an interesting journey. But we feel like this. Teachers have been talking about this for a long time. But we feel like this is gonna be better to hold the kids in that larger group and really get their math skills solid before we make that decision that's gonna impact them down the road. And so I think it'll actually be better long term. If you can, that's a lot, so if you think of questions as you're thinking about it later on in the week and have questions, let me know. You'd have to go into more.
All right, any other questions? All right. Final 2023-2024 school year calendar.
Nope.
No,
More
oh,
math,
okay, math final.
sorry. Okay. So I apologize to the board, but sort of. We did a presentation the last couple of board meetings about our Into Math that we've been studying this year and piloting 2 different programs. We chose Into Math. We've been working with the sales rep on prices and costs. When we approved, I thought it would be better to go with a 2-year just because of the way our budgeting's gonna work out, and we'll see and start to talk about next year's budget, how that's gonna be looking. I thought a 2-year would be better because we couldn't afford to pay as money next year. Next year's budget is gonna be really tight. And we also know that we want to do the ARC reading phonics implementation, and we can put that we can plan on that for next year. So we already have that. There's just gonna be a lot into next year already. So when I talked to her again, she said, let me talk to my finance department. And the difference between a 2-year and a 6-year was not worth the risk. When she came back, she said, we'll take 15% off the whole bill if you do 6-year, which turned out to be $60,000 difference, which now that got my attention and thought, okay. And she said, I asked if it was 2 fiscal years because we want to pay our first installment during this fiscal year because we have higher than expected interest that we got this year. So we have a little bit extra. We can pay it that first chunk out of this year. We don't want to pay it out of next year. And we pay it out of FY26. And she said, yes, we can do that. So we can pay the bulk now. And we can pay it none in FY25, and we can pay the remainder in FY26 and get more for the money. So I think it's the responsible thing to do fiscally. Just wanted to let the board know that, and I can put that on the agenda next week and redo it. It always pays to go back and ask, push sometimes. Let me know if there's any more questions. We'd be happy to answer. Now the calendar. So the calendar we have to approve every year at the end of the year. This is just formal approval of it because we had 3 different days where we took 2 actual snow days and then 1 e-learning day. We resubmitted the calendar. It's been approved through the ROE board has to approve it. It'll be on next week's agenda.
Nation of older student desks and chairs.
Okay, we've got some extra chairs and desks that we've had in storage that are, we don't use anymore. As we've refreshed some of our desks. We've had the old ones, just keep piling them into storage. We want to get rid of them. Carly's looked into some different ways to get rid of them. They have little or no value. Money wise, nobody wants an old student desk. So one of the options that we have is to donate them to a place that will come and pick them up and deliver them to
Mongolia.
Mongolia. I was gonna say Mongolia, so that they can be used by someone at least and not fill up the landfill and have us tear them apart to recycle the parts and do all of that work. So it costs $1,500 for us to do that so that they can ship it, and that's it.
So our cost would be 1,500.
1,500, and
Do we get to write any of that off, or has it all been depreciated already?
we can write it off the taxes that we owe. Zero, we don't pay taxes.
It would cost more to break them down. What we looked into doing, first of all, we even try to give them away, no takers. But it would cost more to break them down in terms of custodial salaries for the summer. Because we would recycle the metal part, we get a very small amount for the metal actually, because a service would come here with a dumpster. Then we would have to, not only pay the custodians to break them down, rent additional dumpsters for all the plastic chair, like seat backs and desktops. So donating them this way, it's good from an environmental standpoint. Someone else gets to use them, and it probably costs us in the long run.
I don't know if it's feasible, but would it be possible to like get letters from the students who receive them? So our kids can say like, hey, this is where our, all, helping other people out and all that. If the program is even set up to do something like that.
Maybe we could start it, have our kids send a letter saying here.
Yeah, this is old desk. I know it'd be hard to find out which student used which desk, but just have like.
Yeah, kind of cool. But I know we're not voting on anything, but this is a no-brainer for me. Right?
Yeah. Seemed like.
How, what about all those other, you talked that there are other things like sneeze guards and stuff like that, are those, gone already or still in process?
Still in process, not gone. I think certain things like that will be challenging. We were thinking of having a garage sale, but, that's a great deal of work. And we have significant classroom moves in the elementary building this summer. So given that and just all of the other summer construction projects, the asbestos abatement, putting the new flooring in, seal coating both of the, both schools' parking lots, we're not going to be able to do the garage sale. We'll keep trying to figure out ways to get rid of those things. But the good news is right now it's 455 chairs and 400 desks. Getting rid of that will open up a lot of the space that the custodial staff is looking to open up, the storage space that is.
When we buy capital equipment like that, don't we typically put it in our contracts, like when you bring us the new stuff, you take the old stuff away? Or did we want to keep it at the time?
I think at the time, with a lot of the desks, we purchased new desks to put in the classrooms, and the old desks went into the East Gym during COVID for lunches. So that's how we ended up with all of the inventory. They were both being used at one time.
MBAC fees, so we are on the MBAC fees. Go.
So these are the MBAC fees that Dr. Lind and I are proposing for next year. They're the same fees as this year, so there would be no increase. It seemed to cover our costs for the program, so we're in the next board meeting, we will ask for the board to approve these fees at no increase for the 24-25 school year. Yeah, it's pretty simple.
All right, food service contract.
Right. The food service contract, so we outsource our food service to Arbor Management. We are in the third of a 5-year contract with them, so every year it increases by a specific CPI. It's the December Food Away from Home Consumer Price Index, so that went up 5.2%. That will be the increase that the school district will be charged per meal, next school year. So right now, for the month of May, similar to last year, in your board packet is the contract from Arbor Management. The next board meeting, we would be looking for the board to simply approve that contract. And then as we get closer to, I think it's July, we find out what the reimbursement rate is, the federal lunch reimbursement rate for school lunches is, and then we can determine at that point what we would charge students for lunches. So this is just to simply approve the contract for next year.
And we don't really have the ability to negotiate that. It was already built into the original contract.
Exactly.
CPIs.
Yes, yep, that's correct. Included in your board packet is all of this information. If you'd like to read more, I think the very first page was a statement of how they landed on their increased cost.
And I assume we're in the same boat we have been for years where there's no one who wants our business to bid out to really, right?
Right,
Because they're so tiny.
we are. So in the last bid, again, that was 3 years ago now, or almost 3 years ago, there were two companies that came in bid, which was better than the last bid. Before that, at that moment, we had to go with the lowest bidder, and Arbor was the lowest bidder. Since then, there's been a change in state law where school districts do not have to go with low bidder for food services. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the next round of bidding, to see if more people bid, knowing that. But you're right, we are a small district, not serving lots of meals, so some companies may find it challenging to come over here. If anyone has questions about that contract when you read it over, just feel free to reach out.
Cottonwood Estates.
Okay, Cottonwood Estates impact fees. So there's a property in the district that basically has the ability to sell chunks of its property to someone if they wanted to buy it and build a home. And so this agreement is what we send to the county each year that would enable the district to collect impact fees from that property. So this is similar to the impact fee agreement we have with, I forgot the name of the development right by Children of America that's building the townhomes. Heritage Park, thank you. This is a different piece of property in the district, and this contract goes through the county actually rather than the village.
And everybody's aware of what impact are.
Next one is the treasurer's surety bond. Again, this is another thing that we do every year. Last year we did this in June, I believe. I have a question out to our insurance company to create the paperwork. I'm hoping to have it before the next board meeting. It just will require your approval and signature, but essentially it's an insurance policy for the district treasurer to ensure that no money is being misplaced, say. We're required to do this every year, submit it to, I believe, the ROE, and they submit it to the state as well. So once I get that, again, I'll follow up. I'm hoping it's by next Monday so that you have it for signature. If not, this will be in the June meeting. But the board would need to sign off on that. The next two items, amended budget and resolution to transfer budget items between funds. So there's no change to the pages that have been presented over the last couple of board meetings. In the next board meeting next Monday, we'll start with a special session for the amended budget and the resolution to transfer items between funds. So again, in my business office report are the details of where the money will be transferred or where the expenditures and revenues have increased or decreased. Okay, just keep going here.
Yep.
Bus lease contract with Santander. So in your board packet is the bus lease for the new smaller wheelchair accessible buses for next school year. Dr. Lind and I are asking the board to sign off on that. If you have any questions as you're reading through that contract, please let me know. However, our attorney reviewed it word for word. So their review has been completed. We have an updated Red Apple contract for fiscal year 25. So earlier, and I believe this year you had signed off on a Red Apple contract. They're the preschool that rents 2 rooms in the elementary building. There's a modification to their location in that contract. So we're just asking for an updated contract to be signed. And then the last one here is, for me anyway, is Little Heroes contract for fiscal year 25. Also in your board packet is the contract for Little Heroes. They provide physical therapy services to students here at the district. So this is pretty much the same contract as last year. There's no cost increase. It is the only changes in that contract are just the dates. But again, that's another contract that the board signs off on. That's it. Yep.
Library Bill of Rights.
Library Bill of Rights. So the state passed the law in January that says, it's a right to read legislation initiated to protect freedom of the library to acquire and circulate collection of materials to address the needs of the entire community and the readers it serves. In order to get our annual library grant for supplies and materials in the library from the state, this is from the Secretary of State, we must adopt the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights or provide our own alternative policy prohibiting the practice of banning books and resources. So in order to get our money, we have to do that. I've attached the Library Bill of Rights to the board notes. If you have any questions, let me know.
And our librarians like what the American
Yep.
Library means.
That's our recommendation to adopt the American Library Association's bill.
Draft public comment via electronic communication procedures.
So, last meeting, we asked to clarify a little bit, reading and of the electronic communications, because we don't want to have a lot, but some people can't make meetings. So I try to make it, as, simple as possible, so that, if people ask for it to be read. I did have the one comment in there that says, if somebody can't make the meeting, they should come. Or if they do make the meeting, we won't read the comment, they can say something like, because we prefer, like at the end, we want people to show up to meetings and have comments. I made sure, we're not gonna run over too long. If we get a bunch on the same thing, you get to summarize it or just read one, but if somebody else in the board says, I don't really agree with you, they have their opportunity to put in their 2 cents. A couple of other restrictions that we don't have for, if you're a live speaker, you don't necessarily have to be a member of the community, right? So, but I said, you know, in this, we don't want people from California just inundating us with letters. So if you're not in the community, then show up.
Yeah.
So there's that. And I increased the time to 24 hours before the meeting, so that way, you know, if there's a big topic, we have time to really think about it and summarize it. So, and then the last part, if it's indecent or offensive, we're not gonna read it. So, if you guys like it, we can vote on it next time. If not, suggest some changes. Up to you.
I like it.
Thanks for doing the work.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No problem.
Good.
Hey, John, I didn't catch where you asked for additions to these items. I do have one thing I wanted to ask, as long as Ben's here. I wanted to add to this agenda, our discussion items. Are you tracking our tardy people? Are we gonna make? Do we need to send a letter out like, hey, your students 2 more and they're gonna miss their 10? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah,
We had talked, we're discussing.
Because that's a lot of money, right? Or, well, it stopped us last time from getting where we want to be. And if I'm only 2 tardies away from where we have chronic absenteeism, I would want to know, so I get them to school no matter what.
Well, does that affect our money or just our rank?
Well, it affects our ranking, which in turn affects.
No, not anymore. Not the money. It doesn't impact any money,
Our ranking.
just our ranking,
Okay, so
Yeah. which is important.
it's still important, yeah, so it doesn't.
Might impact your property values.
Yeah.
In general.
So we're not doing that.
Not the parties, right now, we focus it more on the full day because for,
Yeah, I'm not talking tardies for that. The chronic absenteeism was like 10, right?
yeah.
So if you were out for a week
So
being
we've
sick,
been, both Jake and I, you know, obviously we've done our kind of communication with certain. Problem is that what we want to explore is, right now, it's more of a manual system. We pull the report, we track those, we write the letters, we send. We want to obviously see if there's other ways that there are some programs, even college will might be able to do that, where we can generate a template, you know, once they hit the threshold. Parents get notified that you're with this benchmark for 5 days, 10 days, 15. What we want to try to avoid or decrease the number of students that missed over 17 more days. So that's where the chronic absenteeism.
17.
Because I think we sure last year, at least, I'm sure we had.
Are we doing better this year than that?
We went some proactive steps that we did this year. Conferences, I have conferences for the parents that we have the last 2 years. Some success stories, some.
Okay. Thank you.
Consolidated district plan?
Okay, so another item that we have to approve every year is the consolidated district plan so that we can get our title monies, which is title 1, 2, and 4 for us. From the state, well, from the federal, but the state controls it. So starts with the consolidated district plan approval, which is the overall, and then it goes down into later on approving the title individually from there. So that'll be coming up. We have to do that in June. Just as a reminder, we only have, after this, we only have 2 more meetings in this fiscal year. So it's, we have next week, and then we have a long break, and then 1 meeting in June.
Do we need to vote on nixing that June 10th Cal meeting? Or is that something we can just committees?
Yep. All right. Superintendent report. Talent show on Friday was amazing. The kids, is really fun to see the kids out performing and showing their stuff off to their friends and family. It was really funny. Skeptical kids were really good.
Thank you.
That was funny. So that's it. We've got, as I put out my board notes, lots of events coming up. You don't have to attend them all, but it's gonna amazing busy month, so. Something just about every night at school happening. Actually, this week's a little bit lighter, it's only a couple of things. But it's all fun. We also had today the staff versus students scholastic bowl match, which is really exciting. And parents versus students scholastic bowl match, so we did okay.
Just
We
barely.
squeaked by. I don't know, the questions didn't line up with last year, or those kids are getting pretty good. They're pretty quick today.
All right, just two things. One, most of my business office report are the things that are up in the information section. But just a heads up, our financial audit and internal controls review is scheduled for the week of September 16th. So that will be for this current fiscal year. So the business office will start working on gathering all of that information over July and August. And we'll be ready to go for September 16th. And then the other update I have is about benefits open enrollment. So just like at a company, we have open enrollment every year. Our benefits open enrollment will be May 28th through June 7th. As many of you know, we're a part of a cooperative to help keep our medical, dental and vision and life insurance benefits pretty low. I don't have anything in there on this, sorry. But what we did this year, especially coming out coming off of last year's medical insurance increase, was we looked at some plan redesigns. So if you recall last year, I think our medical increase for the PPO was around 14%, which is significant. This year, and staff will be learning about this tomorrow and in open enrollment communication, there were some plan design changes where under the PPO plan, something called Blue Choice option has been added to the plan. And this basically, I'm going to read this really quick so I get it right. It is a network that consists of providers who are in the current PPO network, but agree to offer care and services at a lower cost, which saves the plan money. And so looking at last year's claims, 91% of the claims for providers who are in the Blue Choice Options Network are covered. So this is great. They've also added an additional tier to specialty medication prescriptions, so that if a plan participant has a very specialized prescription, there's a slight increase for that. And then GLP-1 medications, which are used for weight loss, things like Ozempic, you can't just go and get that. They have to have prior authorization for medical need. So by implementing those plan design changes, the district will experience a much lower increase than we saw last year. So for the PPO, it's a 2%, and for the HMO, it's a 5% increase, which is great. Dental, we're actually seeing an increase this year in premium costs, so that's going up 4.5%. And then vision and life insurance will remain flat, which it typically does. So just wanted to share that information.
Board reports.
The only event I attended was the talent show, and thank you to Dr. Lynn for encouraging people to join Epic and volunteer. He made a good plug for that. So we'll see, getting a new blood from there. There was only one act that I was a little worried about, just from a liability standpoint. somebody decided to rollerblade on stage and I was just. I'm sure they're talented and they know what they're doing, but you just never know, and I was a little nervous about that, but yeah, it's great courage about the kids up there, took a lot of, a lot of work and a lot of emotional strength to get there in front of your peers, so. Good time.
I'm with you on that one.
I went to the concert, the end of the year band concert. And it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really cool. There was a couple standout kids. There was some young boy who had a trumpet, man, and he was into it. Like you could see this was going to be a pass for this kid. He was dancing. And I was like, wow, this guy's got it, but it was really cool. It was well organized. And then each sort of group had their own, like 2 or 3 songs they played. And I don't know, it was a lot of fun. It was enjoyable.
Probably Theo.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
I went to the D117. I don't know, what you call it, extravaganza. It's the choir concert, the art show. It was nice. Our kids did wonderful, so it was fun. I think there was band there too, but I went for that choir and the show. It was great. Our kids did wonderful, and the artwork that they produced was absolutely amazing. It was really.
I have one more. This is big. I wrote it down in my other notes and didn't bring them in, but the Educator of the Year ceremony last week, we had 3 of our staff that were recognized at the Educator of the Year across the county. There were 700 people there this year, which is amazing and awesome. One of our parents actually won for her category, which is neat to see. But for Millburn, Kathy Gardner, our transportation guru, I don't know what you call Kathy. She does everything. But she was honored for transportation support staff. Jen Alley is our early childhood specialist teacher. She was honored as well as an early childhood teacher. And then Krista Green, as our nurse at the middle school, was honored and nominated. So it was fun to be with them and celebrate with them. A good time.
Session. All right, 1 and 2. All right, I'm going to need a motion to go into closed session regarding item 1. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body, or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this Act 5 ILCS 120-2C1 and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for 1 or more classes of employees, 5 ILCS 120-2C2.
Using Brendan's words, so moved.
It's neat.
I need a second.
Second,
All right, Madam Secretary, call the roll.
John Lorenzen.
Yes.
Brendan Murphy,
Yes.
Peter Cucciarini.
yes.
Julian Feld. Yes. John Ruggles.
Yes.
Fred Stepstrom.
Yes.
And Lisa Wooster. Yes.
There will be no action other than adjournment when we return, so I will close out the live stream.